Mr. President, as we vote this evening on the Pain-Capable Child Protection Act, I speak to the bill as a doctor who practiced in a hospital for the uninsured for decades. Now, I mentioned working in a hospital for the uninsured because the uninsured are vulnerable. But, Mr. President, if the uninsured are vulnerable, among those, the uninsured pregnant woman is particularly vulnerable. And, Mr. President, if we're to say that she is particularly vulnerable, then we can say that her unborn child is most vulnerable of all. So I speak to these folks with that background. Our country has struggled to find a balance between those of us who are pro-life and those who are pro-choice. Now, as a pro-life doctor, I think that the Pain-Capable Unborn Child Protection Act strikes a balance. Again, as a physician, let me say that it is an obligation, our society's obligation, to care for the woman who is pregnant. Again, she is among the most vulnerable. Her child is the future of our society. We all agree to this. You can see that we agree because our social programs provide a safety net both for her and her unborn child. Example, society pays for well baby visits through Medicaid or through special programs for women if they are uninsured. If that child is born healthy, then he or she is more likely to be a healthy person, to contribute to society, to have life, liberty, and be able to pursue happiness. Now, those of us who are pro-life and pro-choice can differ when the child within the womb deserves protection as a distinct human, but society has agreed at some point that protection is allowed. I'm pro-life. I think the protection should be when the child is conceived, but right now the law is divided. If a pregnant woman and her child are killed by a reckless driver, there's 2 counts of manslaughter filed against that reckless driver. In one way, society acknowledges the life within the womb. On the other hand, let's be clear, a woman has a right to terminate that pregnancy at another point in the pregnancy. On the other hand, partial birth abortion says that that child's life cannot be terminated when she is coming through the birth canal. And I think the rationale for this is that as a child comes through the birth canal, we recognize that child can live independently if allowed to proceed. If you will, the criteria is, does the child have the ability to live independently from the mother? Again, I think that is the rationale for the partial birth abortion ban. Now, as it turns out, a child who is 5 months old within the womb has the ability to live independently. And again, I speak as a physician. When you see a baby in the womb at 5 months, it's incredible. A friend of mine who works for me, actually, his wife, they're expecting now, and they're excited. They went and got the ultrasound, and they saw the child sucking on his thumb, or her thumb, they don't know yet, but they don't want to know. But nonetheless, it is marvelous what they see inside the child. You can see him yawning, stretching. At 18 weeks, you can find out if it's a boy or a girl. And thanks to modern medicine and amazing NIC, our neonatal intensive care unit, doctors and nurses we have in this country, babies delivered as early as 20 to 22 weeks can survive and live healthy lives, perhaps one day to become the presiding officer in the Senate of the United States. In recent years, medical research has shown that unborn children can feel pain as early as 20 weeks after they are conceived. Now, as a doctor, I have to look at the scientific evidence we have when it comes to the beginning of life. At 20 weeks, studies have provided strong evidence that babies can feel pain despite the fact that the nerve connections between the different parts of the brain are still developing. That is why fetal anesthesia is routinely administered when unborn children require surgery in the womb. By the way, doctors know this. I just got a letter from the Louisiana Academy of Family Physicians. One of their folks, Wayne Gravwald, Dr. Gravwald, called me last night, and their statement in their letter is representing more than 1,900 physicians, including active practicing physicians, residents in training, medical student members, as well as the patients in Louisiana, the Louisiana Academy of Family Physicians is the voice of family medicine. As our advocates, we passed this resolution, resolve that the LAFP is against performing elective abortions 20 weeks and after, and further be it resolved that they do not, just goes on, but that's the take-home point. And family physicians take care both of the mother and of her child, the totality of it. Now, by the way, can I also say this bill includes explicit exceptions when a mother's life is at risk or in cases of rape and incest. Again, attempting to strike society's balance between those of us who are pro-life and those who are pro-choice. Now, versions of this law have already been passed in 20 states, including my state of Louisiana, but all babies who feel pain deserve the same protection. Most Americans agree, even some who believe abortion should be legal. Polls show that majorities of women, independents, and Democrats support this protection. So I hope my colleagues will join in supporting this common sense, humane legislation. It's estimated this bill will protect 12 to 18,000 babies per year. Protecting unborn babies who can feel pain is the right thing to do. Protecting their right to life is the right thing to do. I urge my colleagues to vote for this important legislation. And Madam President, I yield the floor.